We here at the Sports History Network proudly partner with 26 podcasts, all revolving around the history of sports. But did you know that many of our hosts were sports history authors way before they started their shows? It's true. We've got Joe Ziemba, host of When Football Was Football, Joe Zagurski, host of Pro Football in the 1970s, Mark Morthier, host of Yesterday's Sports, Tommy Phillips, host of Lombardi Memories, and Scott Adamson, co-host of From the 55-Yard Line. All these authors have many books for you to choose from. To check them out, go to our website at sportshistorynetwork.com/sportshistorybooks. Pick up your copy today. Soundtrack provided by Kevin MacLeod of filmmusic.io.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Greetings from the Garden State of New Jersey. This is Ringside with Redding, boxing history from yesteryear, brought to you by Sports History Network. I am your host, Frank Redding. In this segment, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to discuss famous draws that have occurred. A draw is defined as a contest that ends in a stalemate or a tie. It does not have a winner or a loser, and for the most part, the outcomes are very controversial. I will discuss 7 draws that have happened throughout the history of the sport. Number 1, Vito Antuofermo versus Marvin Hagler 1. This fight was for the middleweight championship of the world, and it occurred on November 30th of 1979 in Las Vegas, Nevada. 15 rounds. Champion Vito Antuofermo going into this fight, many considered Hagler the uncrowned champion, and Hagler was a 5-1 favorite. Marvin won many of the early rounds and switched stances, confusing the champion. Vito at the middle had pulled back into the fight. The judges' scores were as follows: 145 to 141, Hagler. 144 to 142, Antuofermo. 143 to 143, a draw. The consensus winner, Marvelous Marvin Hagler. The second fight to be discussed, Michael Dokes versus Mike Weaver, number 2, for the WBA Heavyweight Championship of the World. This fight occurred on May 20th of 1983 in Las Vegas, Nevada. Michael Dokes was the champion. This was the first heavyweight title fight to end in a draw since Jack Johnson versus Jim Johnson in 1913. The judges' scores were 143-143, 144-144, and 145-141, Michael Dokes. Weaver landed the more telling effective blows, but Dokes landed more frequent punches. This is the first time that Michael Dokes went 15 rounds. Consensus winner, Mike Weaver. The third fight, Sugar Ray Leonard versus Thomas Hearns, number 2, for the WBC Super Middleweight Championship of the World. This fight occurred on June 12th of 1989 in Las Vegas, Nevada. Leonard was the champion, and both men were in their 30s at this time. Hearns had been knocked out a total of 3 times before this fight happened, and Leonard was relatively inactive over the last several years. Hearns scored 2 knockdowns, in the 3rd round and the 11th round. It was the first time Leonard was knocked down twice in one fight. Leonard scored no knockdowns in the contest, but won a 2-point round in the 5th by all judges, and a 2-point round in the 12th, and finished strong in the 12th round. The judges' scores were 113-112 Hearns, 113-112 Leonard, and 112-112. Consensus winner, Thomas Hitman Hearns. The 4th fight, Azuma Nelson versus Jeff Fennick, number 1, for the WBC Super Featherweight Championship of the World. This fight occurred on June 28th of 1991 in Las Vegas, Nevada. The champion was Azuma Nelson. Jeff Fennick took the fight to the corner and ropes and dominated the action. This, ladies and gentlemen, was an action-packed fight. Fast-paced war of attrition. The judges' scores were 115-113 Fennick, 116-112 Nelson, and 114-114. Consensus winner, Jeff Fennick. Fight number 5, James Toney versus Mike McCallum 1 for the IBF Middleweight Championship of the World. This fight occurred on December 13th of 1991 in Atlantic City, New Jersey. James Toney was the champion. Mike McCallum's experience and ring generalship was brought to the table. James Toney had youth on his side and a wild swinging style. He kept on coming and punching hard. James Toney came on in the late rounds. It was a very even contest between two contrasting styles. The judges' scores were 116-112 Toney, 115-113 McCallum, and 114-114. Consensus winner, if I had to pick, it would be James Toney. The 6th fight in question was Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker versus Julio Cesar Chavez for the WBC Welterweight Championship of the World. Pernell Whitaker was the champion going into this fight, and it took place on September 10th of 1993 in San Antonio, Texas. Whitaker, with fast hands, southpaw hit and move style, was an absolute nightmare for Chavez. His hit and run tactics and slick defense proved to be to Chavez's frustration. Chavez could not cut off the ring. The judges' scores were as follows: 115-113 Whitaker, 115-115, and 115-115. Consensus winner, Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker. The last fight I'm going to discuss is Lennox Lewis versus Evander Holyfield 1 for the World Heavyweight Championship. Holyfield held the WBA and IBF versions of the title, and Lennox Lewis held the WBC version of the title. This fight took place on March 13th of 1999 in New York, New York. Lewis used his superior height and jab to control the action and dictate the pace of the fight throughout the contest. The judges' scores were 116-113 Lewis, 115-113 Holyfield, and 115-115. Very controversial. The consensus winner was Lennox Lewis. I'm going to close out now by saying this is your host, Frank Redding, saying to all listeners, be happy, be healthy, be well, and be safe.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
At the Sports History Network, we're all about sports yesteryear, and so we're so pleased to introduce you to Row One, an online memorabilia gallery and shop that brings your sports history to life anywhere. The Row One gallery includes over 5,200 gorgeously reproduced prints of team posters, game program covers, game tickets, advertisements, and more in baseball, pro and college football, pro and college basketball, and more. And any gallery item may be printed in a variety of sizes on wood, metal, canvas, acrylic, or poster paper. And in Row One shop, check out the thousands more of unique items with the retro and historical designs dating back to 1876, including t-shirts, long sleeve shirts, phone cases, mugs, blankets, pillows, towels, and even shower curtains. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com, ROW1, for access to the full Row One catalog and for gallery prints and gift items, plus get a 15% discount off all prints on the Row One Pictorum Gallery with coupon code SHN15. Follow the link on the show notes.